events. I want to go to the reporter who's been digging in on the subject for a long time, Susan Crabtree. She's a Real Clear Politics White House and national political correspondent, and she joins us now. Hello, Susan. Great to have you back, as always.
Yo, thanks for having me, Vince.
One of the things I know, courtesy of your reporting, is that the Secret Service is pretty overworked right now, aren't they?
Absolutely. They are so struggling. So many of the special agents and uniform division officers are working so hard, many times 7 days a week without breaks, that they have reached their supermax overtime limit. So basically, I've been told that they're working for free now, essentially. I mean, they have their base pay, but they're not getting compensated for all of the overtime that they're forced to do. And this is contributing to terrible morale and has been for years, but especially during this peak campaign season. And with the United Nations General Assembly meetings planned for New York City later this month, and there's a 650 special agent shortage for that event alone.
And what is the shortage attributable to? Is it that their budget is maxed out on agents, or is it a matter of they just don't actually have enough agents working for the agency?
They don't have enough agents working for the agency for all of their protectees. There are now over 30 people that they are needed. They have the responsibility to protect, according to the executive orders that President Biden puts out. The president controls who is protected and who isn't. It's not the Secret Service. They don't make that judgment. So yeah, it includes, obviously now all of a sudden Donald Trump, after the assassination attempt, is getting the full package of security assets, and I can go into some very interesting information that Senator Chuck Grassley just put out about the Iranian threat against Donald Trump.
And I want to know. I want to know a lot about that. Just on this one last piece on kind of how they're staffing up the protection of these guys. So when the Secret Service agents are stretched thin, my understanding is that they're also supplementing the protection of these guys by bringing in other agencies, including by bringing in people who are not really trained to do this kind of work.
Yeah, that's always been the case, but it's exacerbated during the peak of the campaign season, and they did that. I reported on this, and now Senator Hawley has a whistleblower that's confirming my early reporting and adding some interesting details to it. But yes, they had most of the people protecting Donald Trump on July 13th at the Butler rallies where the assassination attempt occurred were Homeland Security Investigations special agents. And they were taken off, according to Hawley's whistleblower, off of child sex trafficking cases to go protect the Secret Service, to protect former President Trump and other protectees. And they were not trained. I reported early on that they were only given a 1 or 2 hour PowerPoint presentation to give them the skills to translate into, just instantly translate into a Secret Service agent to be able to protect these the President Trump and others at these rallies, these campaign rallies.
Wow.
But what now Hawley, as whistleblower, has come forward and said that even that 1 to 2 hour webinar was so glitchy that they couldn't hear it. They couldn't hear the webinar, so they never did get really trained before the Trump-Butler rally.
Unbelievable. Okay, and then lastly, before we get to the Iranian threat to President Trump, you have a report out in the last 24 hours that despite the fact that the Secret Service is overextended, that they're bringing in all these supplemental workers, that everyone's maxed out on the amount of time that they're actually working to protect people, they're planning trips to Disney World? What's happening here?
Yes, but only if you are supportive of the LGBTQ plus workplace summit that's occurring at Disney World. Basically, the rank and file special agents and uniform division officers are flabbergasted that just yesterday they got an email agency-wide, it went out agency-wide, asking for nominations to go to the LGBTQ plus Out and Equal Workplace Summit being held at Disney World in Orlando, October 7th through 10th. So at the height of this after campaign season, when so many Secret Service agents are stressed out, stretched too thin, the resources. Just last week, Vince, the Secret Service and the Department of Defense announced that the military officers are going to be supplementing the Secret Service through the inauguration day, bringing up all kinds of training questions and issues, as well as optics. Why do we even have a Secret Service if we're just going to rely on the military, uniformed military people to sort of, is that something that the Secret Service wants to have representing them? Do they want uniformed members of the military to be protecting dignitaries? Is that what the look that we want as a nation?
Well, you need to bring in ringers if you're going to have people go to Trans Day at Disney World. You got to some people come in to help you. Hey, so let's talk about what Chuck Grassley released today. You've got some breaking news on this. Iranian threats to Secret Service protectees, and at the top of the list looks like Donald Trump. What are we learning?
Well, we did know about this. That was the reason. Just right after the assassination attempt, they said, "Oh no, we never denied assets that requested assets that the Trump detail requested for Donald Trump to protect him, because in fact we increased the assets for the Butler rally." Well, that was true. It's a bit of semantics, of course, because they did deny for 2 years requests for more assets for Donald Trump. But in this case, they did provide counter snipers. It was the first time they did at the Butler rally because there was this big, very tangible Iranian threat. In fact, the day before the Butler rally, the FBI arrested Asif Merchant, who is a Pakistani citizen with very deep ties to Iran. In fact, he had just been to Iran for 2 weeks, and he was on the ground in New York City trying to hire hitmen to go after Donald Trump. And now we learned from what Chuck Grassley just released today, they also could have been targeting President Joe Biden and Nikki Haley, although you have to read what Grassley released. He released what is basically the FBI write-up of their interrogation of this guy Merchant that they arrested, and it is damning. I mean, it's so alarming what Chuck Grassley just released, the detailed accounting of the way they were assessing the security vulnerabilities at Donald Trump's rallies. It's chilling. Just read through it. I put it on my Twitter feed, on my X feed. It is, and Chuck Grassley released it to reporters. I believe it's on his website as well. I looked at the interrogation, at the FBI write-up of it, and it shows how they were assessing to this granular level how many magnometers the Secret Service was using at each rally, how many people they considered guards that were there. In fact, if you take a step back, you can say, without really going too far to conclude this, that the Secret Service lack of threat-based assets, security assets for Donald Trump, created the invitation for this assassination plot to go forward. They show there that if there were counter snipers at his rallies beforehand, you would not have. It doesn't take much to conclude that this assassination plot may have not gone to the detailed steps that they took in terms of trying to hire hitmen. Thankfully, it was the FBI they were trying to hire. That this guy Asif Merchant was trying to hire. It was not actual mafia that you can see he was attempting to do so.
Mm-hmm.
But I would just say, go read it's called a proffer. It's the write-up, the FBI's write-up. Chuck Grassley got a hold of it, although he said that the FBI was not being very forthcoming. And the FBI has not been very forthcoming in my questions to them as well. But yeah, it's just chilling stuff.
Okay, so I'm noticing two things here, the dates. They arrested this guy on the 12th. This is the Asif Merchant, who you're talking about, the Pakistani man with ties to Iran, the one who was plotting this assassination of Donald Trump. They arrested him July 12th. That's the day before the Butler rally, as you point out on social media today. The proffer, which is where they interview the guy, it took place July 17th, 4 days after the rally. So they had this guy in custody on the 12th. Why did it take so long to interview him to ascertain this information? It feels like kind of a rush situation, doesn't it? If you have a guy in custody who's plotting to assassinate Donald Trump, don't you question him immediately ahead of a public outdoor rally?
You would think so, especially if you would think so. That's a very interesting point that you raised. I didn't even notice that. Good job on noticing the date. That is, it's alarming. It's startling too. They are saying that there is no connection, that they can conclude as of now. The FBI is telling reporters last week, they told us, that Thomas Crooks had any foreign influence whatsoever.
Sure, but if you have someone who's plotting an assassination attempt, and as you point out in the proffer, it's a very detailed assessment of the security posture around Trump. Regardless of whether or not this guy is coordinating with a different would-be assassin, you would think that assessing the way that an assassin is constructing the scene, thinking it through, would be helpful to the Secret Service to say, whoa, there's a vulnerability here, and this guy was just about to exploit it.
Yeah, absolutely you would. I don't know why it took that days and after assassination attempt and the death of Corey Comparatore to get this information, but they did get it, and it just, to me, it just is it provides damning evidence against the Secret Service and their contention that they do everything by threat-based. Everything they do is threat-based.
Yes.
Which just completely flies in the face when they say, oh, but not for Trump because he's a former president, so he didn't get the full package, or he didn't even get a counter sniper before this event. He didn't get a counter surveillance unit, which would have roamed around the rally and encountered Thomas Crooks, especially if he's using a rangefinder. This is all.
It's absurd.
I just think that this shows exactly the vulnerabilities that the Secret Service opened up for Donald Trump, for an Iranian threat to become extremely tangible against Donald Trump. I mean, you look at the details in this proffer, it's chilling.
You know, the Secret Service should provide, maybe they do, or maybe I've missed it, but they should provide at least a count on the number of threats they assess each year based on the target to the public. Because I don't know. I mean, right now, if I were to ask, like, some random Biden administration stooge, they'd be like, oh, the real threat is domestic right-wing terrorists trying to go after Biden or something like that. I just don't believe that. Trump is the single most demonized human being on the planet by the entire establishment. The idea that they would give him a weak security posture is absurd if your goal is to actually protect him and to keep him alive. I do think the public would benefit from knowing how much incoming the Secret Service and the FBI have to deal with when it comes to threats to these guys.
Oh, absolutely. And, it is obvious that they knew about this particular ASIF merchant threat in the days leading up to his arrest. So they were starting to take it very seriously. We knew about the Iranian threat against Trump and against Mike Pompeo, former Secretary of State, because of ever since there was a threat from Iran, ever since they decided, the Trump administration and Donald Trump himself decided to kill the top Iranian general, Soleimani, in February, January 3rd, 2020. So ever since then, we've known about this threat, but yet they're protecting different people. They were protecting Robert O'Brien, a national security advisor, after John Bolton. Bolton had an attempted assassination plot thwarted. So they've known about this threat. So why would they not give him at least a counter sniper team?
Yes.
It's not 2 or 3.
It's totally dangerous. Totally dangerous.
Absolutely.
Susan, thank you for digging in on this and constantly providing new and interesting and important information. Really appreciate you as always.